Hello big cats and kittens, so welcome to this video, and in this video we're going to think about intonation in English and how we can learn it better and how we can actually use it in a more communicative way. So firstly, let's think about pronunciation in general. Now, pronunciation is basically made up of two different categories. And so the first categories we can think of as segmental. These are the usual things that you study in your English lessons. So segmentals, we can think of that as the pieces of sound. So vowels, consonants, sometimes called the phonemes. So a, e, I, o, b, k, d, e, f, and that kind of thing. And it also includes syllables, so how those phonemes are connected together. So for example, the word sports is one syllable, so if we kind of clap out the rhythm, so sports, whereas support is two syllables, support, so two syllables. So they would be our segmental. The other parts of pronunciation, not just in English, but generally in every language, is suprasegmental. So suprasegmental, we can think of this as the pieces of pronunciation that we put on top of segmental. So it's not changing the vowels or consonants or syllables, but it is changing how it sounds. So for example, stress. So which word are we stressing in a sentence? So English is what's called a stress-timed language. So that means that the stress changes which word in a sentence depending on the context, depending on the situation. Some languages are not stress-timed and the stress placement never changes. Okay, but English, the stress does change. We also have intonation, like what we will talk about today. So this is the rise and fall of the language. We also have the rhythm. So the rhythm of the language, it again differs from accent to accent, dialect to dialect. The pitch, so some languages have a very high pitch generally, and other languages have a very low pitch. And with intonation, for example, that some languages have a very wide range of intonation, so the highest highs and the lowest lows. Some languages have a very narrow intonation, and pitch is similar in that sense, that different languages have a different pitch. We pitch our language also depending on the context, on the situation. We have amplitude. So if we think of like the word amplifier, so this is the volume that we speak at. And finally, we have the tone. So the difference between asking, "Can I have a Coke, please?" and "Can I have a Coke, please?" Well, the tone is different there. We have a softer tone. So we're going to focus on the suprasegmental for this video. And we're going to focus on the intonation. And we're first going to think about list intonation. So how things get listed in English. So let's think about the sentence, "We need chocolate, cookies, and cream." We need chocolate, cookies, and cream. So here's the question. How many items are there? So are we saying it's chocolate, cookies, and cream? Or are we saying chocolate, cookies, and cream? So is it 3 items or 2 items? I'd like chocolate, cookies, and cream. Well, one way we can think about intonation, and it is intonation that separates these items. If we think of intonation as being like music, so the first note that we can think of that as the middle note. And if we look at the highest note that we're going to use, then this would be the highest note, and our lowest note would be down here. Okay, so we're always going to start usually with this middle note. So if we think of our list intonation, so let's take this example. Do you prefer beer, wine, or soju? Now, it sounds very strange if we say it in a monotone way without any intonation. So let's think about how we would put this on our musical staff, on our musical stave. So again, we're going to start with our middle note. So this middle note would be do. So I actually recorded somebody saying this, and I tracked it using some software to actually show the highs and the lows. So this is from a real person's speech. So the next note is here, here, and here. So it sounds like, do you prefer? Do you prefer? Okay, so we can think of it like music. Now, the first item is our highest note. So it goes up here. So do you prefer beer, wine, or soju? Yeah, so ju in this case is our lowest note. So do you prefer beer, wine, or soju? So we can hear it as like ha, 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 ha. So top, middle-ish, and then bottom. So this is actually separating out the items. So when you're listening to somebody, we can nicely hear how many items we have. So in the case of chocolate, cookies, and cream, we can hear that it's 3 items compared to chocolate, cookies, and cream, which would be 2 items. Stays kind of in the middle. Let's have another example. So, do you prefer iced tea, coffee, or juice? So again, we can hear it kind of descending down. So do you prefer iced tea, coffee, or juice? And again, it nicely separates it out so the listener can actually hear what it's saying. So again, for our example with chocolate, cookies, and cream. So do you prefer chocolate, cookies, or cream? Ha, ha, oh. So we can hear that it's top, middle, and bottom. So that was our list intonation. So if we're thinking of using things like parallel form or parallel structure, this is another way that we're separating it out, right? Noun, 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 but also high, middle, low. So another intonation pattern that we can look at is something called closed questions. Okay, so like yes, no questions or good, bad questions. So questions that have a very limited answer. So it's yes or no, it's up or down. So again, I found this by analyzing actual native speaker speech. So we'll notice that a closed question, so is it normal to tip a taxi driver? So I'm exaggerating it here for the effect, but so is it normal to tip a taxi driver? So we can see yes, no questions get raised up at the end. They finish on the highest note, okay? Because again, verbally, we are signaling this is a question. I want an answer to this question, and it's a yes, no question. Or it's a good, bad question. It's a hot, cold question. There are limited answers. So another example, and again, this is taken from a real native speaker speech. So, is it appropriate to bring a gift? So we see actually the last note, if we can think of it as a note, the last note starts here and then kind of slides up to that highest note. So it sounds like gift. So it's not gift, but gift. It kind of slides up to that note. Okay, so again, we're starting... as this speaker did, starts on that kind of middle note and kind of glides down, but definitely finishes on that highest note. So it goes down and then it finishes up. Okay, appropriate to bring a gift. So let's think about an example then. So here's the question. Is it best to arrive early? So have a think about it for a moment. Where is this going to finish? Okay, where is it going to go down? Where is it going to go up? Okay, so just take a moment, have a think about that. Okay, hopefully you're shouting out loud at home, or even better, on the subway if you're watching on your phone. So this is how it actually sounded from a native speaker. So it sounded like, is it? Now this one's kind of interesting because they kind of slide up to that middle note. But again, we're starting kind of in the middle. So is it best to arrive early? Is it best to arrive early? Okay, I'm exaggerating it for effect, but is it best to arrive early? Sounds like that. It's a yes/no question. Which brings us to the next kind of question. So open questions. So open questions do not have limited answers. So for example, what are you doing this summer? Would be an open question. There's any kind of answers that could be the response. So here's an example again from a native speaker. And hopefully what you notice immediately is where the final note is. So you notice open questions. So again, we're starting in the middle with that middle note. So when is the next bus? Kind of slides down. So this speaker actually started high, but you notice we're finishing on the lowest note. Now, for some languages, that's a very unusual intonation pattern. So some languages, all questions go up at the end. But it would sound very strange to say that in English. When is the next bus? Would sound very strange because the pronunciation, the intonation is signaling that this is a yes/no question or a closed question. However, the answer that they're expecting is an open question. Let's have another look at, let's have a look at another example. So again, starting with that middle note. So what kind of movie is it? So what kind of movie is it? So again, we're ending on that lowest note. What kind of movie is it? Again, this is an open question. So not what kind of movie is it? Sounds very strange. Again, what you're signaling with the intonation is that it's a closed question, which can get confusing because the answer is not a closed answer. Okay, so again, let's try giving you the options. So why did you choose it? So again, think, what is that pattern going to look like? Okay, try saying it out loud now, as loud as you can. I'll give you a moment to think. Okay, so I put it through the software and this is how it came out. So again, starting in the middle. So why did you choose it? So we see we go right from the highest note straight into the lowest note. Why did you choose it? Why did you choose it? Okay, so again, we're ending on that lowest note because what we're doing with the intonation is signaling this is an open question. Okay, so today we thought about list intonation. So with each item, we're going to start high and then go down, sing lower notes with each item, finishing on the lowest note. We looked at closed questions, where the intonation goes to the highest note at the end. And we looked at open questions, which is the exact opposite. It ends with the lowest note. So again, how we say something, we are signaling to that person what we are telling them. So are we giving them a list of things? Are we asking a closed question or an open question? Okay, so this is something you can practice on your own and enjoy.